Hello, you're on the F Recap channel. Today we'll be reviewing the 2021 movie, Lamb. A snowstorm rages and a herd of horses, frozen in the blizzard, suddenly bolts, sensing something terrifying in the whiteness. Through the snow, the light of a solitary farmhouse can be seen. Inside the barn, a flock of sheep peacefully munches on hay when heavy footsteps echo, breaking the calm. The anxious bleating of a sheep off camera doesn't cease. Once again, footsteps are heard. It seems the source of the noise is moving away. In the passage between the stalls, a sheep lies, breathing heavily. The radio switches on, and a voice congratulates the listeners on Christmas, offering them to join in an evening prayer. Meanwhile, the farm's owners, Ingvar and Maria, are setting the festive table. The scene shifts 6 months forward. It's late spring. While Maria works the tractor, preparing the soil for planting, Ingvar tends to the sheep, sweeping away leftover dry grass and laying fresh hay. A little later, the couple helps deliver a lamb in a highly realistic scene, pulling the lambs from the sheep and cleaning them. At dinner, Ingvar reads a newspaper article about the theoretical possibility of time travel. Maria remarks that someone will still have to figure out how to make it practical. From their conversation, it becomes clear that the future, in all its potential glory, doesn't really interest the grounded, pragmatic farmers. However, some events from their past seem to cast a shadow over their lives. The next morning, they continue their daily chores, tagging the lambs, trimming their ears, and discussing the fresh batch of lambs, which is the best in years. But the animals are still giving birth. Their dog leads them with its barking to a sheep in labor. At the sight of the newborn lamb, which isn't shown to the viewers in full, the farmers' faces reflect surprise. They carefully pick it up, carry it into the house, and lay it in a straw-lined basin, while the mother sheep bleats anxiously in the pen. Maria feeds the lamb warm milk from a bottle. At night, she can't sleep, watching the lamb as it sleeps. Ingvar has to practically force his wife to rest. The bleating of the sheep, whose lamb was taken away, is stubbornly ignored by the farmers. The next day, Ingvar brings out an old crib from the shed. Maria cradles the lamb in her arms, singing a lullaby before gently placing it in the crib. While working on the tractor, Ingvar suddenly stops and begins to cry, though the reason for his emotions remains unclear. When the mountain peaks slice through low-hanging clouds, a dense fog rolls down onto the farm. In the thick mist, the sheep's attention is drawn to a mysterious figure with a horned head, though they can't quite make it out. Over the next few days, the mother sheep continues to search for her lamb, which irritates the farmers, especially Maria. She chases the sheep away and shuts the windows to block out the annoying sounds. But the mother sheep stubbornly continues calling for her lost lamb. One day, after returning home early due to heavy fog, the couple discovers that the lamb has gone missing. They rush outside and split up to search for her, calling out the name Ada. Yes, that's what they've named this mysterious creature. They eventually find Ada sitting in an open field alongside her sheep mother. Maria lifts the lamb, and for the first time, the audience sees that it is no ordinary creature. The sheep gave birth to a remarkable mutant, part human child, part lamb. The being has the body of a newborn girl, the head of a sheep, one hand with fingers, and the other with a hoof. Ingvar throws his jacket over the lamb child's head and carries her back into the house, while Maria angrily yells at the sheep following them. Inside, the farmer takes a baby shirt from the nursery for Ada, and it becomes clear to the audience that the couple once had a daughter who passed away. Meanwhile, the story shifts focus to a new character. A car speeds down a desolate road, and its passengers stop in the middle of nowhere to pull a bearded man in a black jacket out of the trunk. They toss him into a ditch, leaving him with no other option but to walk. Maria has a nightmare about a herd of rams with eyes glowing in the dark, like cats. She wakes up in a cold sweat and hears the annoying bleating of the sheep again. Finally, her patience snaps. She gets dressed, grabs a rifle, and after locking the dog inside, steps out into the night. Defending her maternal claim, Maria points the gun at Ada's mother and shoots her. Dragging the sheep's body away from the house, Maria buries it right there in the rain. She returns to the house, carefully washing away any traces of dirt and blood as if nothing had happened. Little does she know that the bearded man, hiding around the corner of the house, witnessed it all. The stranger sneaks into the barn to spend the night on an old couch. In the morning, the noise of Ingvar's tractor wakes him, but the bearded man doesn't seem bothered at all. He goes outside to greet Ingvar, and it turns out to be his brother Peter. The farmer invites him in for breakfast. Noticing four place settings on the table, Peter asks if they're expecting guests. Ingvar calls for Ada, and the little girl with the sheep's head walks into the kitchen. Peter stares at her in shock, but says nothing, while the farmers act completely normal, as if the existence of such a hybrid isn't strange at all. After breakfast, Maria takes a bath with Ada, while Ingvar works on repairing the house's exterior. Peter roams around the house, sneaking a peek at Maria through a slightly open door. When Ingvar returns, Peter asks him what this strange creature is. Ingvar simply replies, "It's happiness." Before going to bed, Maria and Ingvar stop by to wish Peter good night. Peter plays along, but when he is alone with his brother, he tries to say something. Ingvar interrupts him before he can voice his opinion. "You can stay as long as you want, but don't meddle in our personal life." Lying in bed, the couple finally discusses Peter. From their conversation, it becomes clear that Peter often borrows money from people and doesn't repay them on time, which is why they get upset with him. Despite this, Peter helps Ingvar with planting potatoes, seemingly working off his stay. During a lunch break, when he's alone with Maria, Peter tries to caress her cheek. She pulls away, but it's obvious there's some history between them, something that Ingvar likely doesn't know. Maria asks Peter to stop acting like a child, but Peter, irritated, remarks that it's them who are playing house with an animal. Rummaging through the barn, Peter finds his old drum set. He starts playing, which catches Ada's attention. At first, the girl is wary of the unfamiliar man, but over time, she begins to warm up to him. Taking advantage of her trust, Peter tries to feed Ada grass, insisting that all sheep eat it. This act enrages Ingvar, but Peter shouts back, "She's not a child, she's an animal." Peter's hostility toward Ada reaches its peak one night when everyone is asleep. He wakes the girl, leads her out into the field, and brings a rifle with him. Once they're far enough from the house, Peter points the gun at Ada, but he can't pull the trigger. Meanwhile, Maria, upon realizing Ada is not in her bed, sets out to find her. She discovers Ada asleep in Peter's arms as he dozes in a chair, having been unable to carry out the deed, despite his dislike for the girl. Later, Maria visits a grave marked Ada Ingvar, daughter. It becomes clear that this is the resting place of their daughter, whose name was passed on to the hybrid. This profound loss has left a deep scar on the couple's lives, and now they see Ada's existence as a gift sent to them in recompense for their suffering. Peter, slowly bonding with Ada, decides to take her on a fishing trip in the tractor. However, on the way back, the tractor breaks down, and they are forced to walk home. Later that evening, they drink alcohol and watch a handball game on TV, emotionally reacting to their favorite team's loss, which frightens Ada. To calm Ada down, Maria plays an old music video of Peter from his younger days. Under the influence of alcohol, the adults begin dancing, reminiscing about their wild youth. Ada, meanwhile, runs outside where she encounters someone unknown. His reflection can be seen in her eyes, and she runs back into the house. The dog charges at the stranger, and off-screen, there is a thud and a whimper, suggesting a tragic fate for the animal. Later, Ada starts to notice her own peculiarities as she examines herself in the mirror. At this moment, Peter tries to make advances on Maria again, but realizing she's not interested, he asks if Ada knows that Maria killed her real mother. Maria understands that Peter witnessed her shooting the sheep. She plays along with his advances just long enough to trick him and lock him in the basement. The next morning, Maria drives a sobered-up Peter to the bus stop, gives him money for the trip, and asks him to leave their farm. Ingvar and Ada have breakfast, then head out to the broken-down tractor to fix it. On their way, they encounter an adult hybrid, a man with the body of a ram carrying a rifle. This is Ada's real father. He shoots Ingvar just as Maria shot the sheep. Ada curls up in sadness beside her adoptive father's bleeding body. At the same time, the vengeful creature, resembling an adult male version of Ada, takes his biological daughter by the hand and leads her off into the vast, rolling hills. A few minutes later, Maria finds her husband bleeding out, dying in her arms. In a broader sense, this story is about revenge, about the dangers of messing with nature. If you mistreat nature too harshly, it can take back what rightfully belongs to it, and no one will be spared when that happens.